I'm sure most of us are culprits. I'm sure most of us choose the easier option very often, especially when you go in tables to tables. You choose stuff that's just going to easy resets. You can get around as many people as you can, but it's something very special about someone like he always did, that would go the extra mile to make sure he might not make it around the whole room, but for the people who saw him, he would be doing stuff that they will never forget for the rest of their life. It was such unique stuff, and I remember he used to do a levitating cigarette, and it was phenomenal.
So welcome to another episode of Desert Island Tricks. We've got another really exciting episode. I think I've started every single episode the same way so far, so I need to come up with a better introduction. But just to let you know how this works, our guests are marooned on a fake desert island. Of course, we're not going to really maroon them on there. And when they're there, they're allowed to take with them 8 tricks, 1 book, and 1 non-magic item. The audience and the particulars, they can have whatever audience they want there. We're not really thinking about that. The real point is just what could they not live without. So let's get into today's guest. Very excited to have today's guest. Today I'm talking to the only magician at the time of recording to have ever won Britain's Got Talent. He's sold out UK tours, headline in the West End, and is one of the most highly viewed entertainers on TV globally. How's that for an intro? I've even had the joy of watching his live touring show last year, and it was absolutely fantastic. And if you get the chance to see his new show, which he's got coming up, please make sure you grab tickets whilst you can. As well as a magician, he served 12 years in the British Army, giving him the title of the Military Mind Reader. Say that 5 times fast. I'm really excited to hear what he has taken to his desert island, and I'm so pleased and excited to welcome to the podcast Mr. Richard Jones. Hello, Richard. How are you?
Hello. Thanks for having me, and thanks for that lovely intro. Appreciate it.
It's a very, very exciting one. Obviously, me and a friend of mine, Sarah, who's hopefully going to be doing one of these as well, we come to see your show last year, I think it was. And it was excellent. You had some really cool pieces of magic in there.
I appreciate it. Which venue did you come to? Just out of curiosity, which area was it?
Oh, God, now you're testing me. No. We normally go to 4 or 5 different venues around the places, so I'm not sure. Oh, no, wait, yours was Maidstone, I think.
Oh, Maidstone, yes. Oh, yeah, the Hazlitt Theatre.
Yeah, I think it was that one.
Oh, yeah, I'm there again, in a couple of months' time. Lovely theatre.
Yeah, we'll be getting tickets for you anyway.
My show, even though it's technically the same show, it does change throughout the year as my ideas kind of develop and stuff. So it's always interesting to hear which show you came to. I always do the Hazlitt Theatre early on in the run because it's a lovely, friendly place. So
yeah, it's a really lovely little theatre. I was going to say that because I also have you on social media, and what was interesting was like literally a couple of weeks after you'd put a new trick into it that we hadn't seen at that point. So I was like, that's really nice because that means that if someone does want to see it twice, there's something new in there for them to enjoy.
Part of it is for that reason, because I do get lots of people, believe it or not, there's a few people, probably 3 or 4 people who come to almost every show I do, public show I do, so which as magicians listening to this, even if you keep the show the same, there's certain things you still have to change so that it still feels fresh to those same people coming. So yeah, it is tricky, but I do enjoy adding new stuff in as I go. It keeps it exciting for me as well.
And like I say, we'll be getting tickets this year. I think we love going to see magicians and supporting. So yeah, we'll be back.
It's a good time. We've got some great magicians touring. Obviously, Ben Hart tours every year. I think Magical Bones does a tour every year. It's a really good time for magic in the theatres. There's a lot of people out touring, which is good.
And even if you're over states, if you come over here on a trip, then make sure you try and catch one of the touring magicians because they're everywhere.
But bring let's 400 of your friends to my show as well, and I'll love you forever.
Definitely do that. So, Leah, let's get back into it. Let's find out what you are taking to your island. So let's start with number 1. What have you chosen? What's the first thing on your list?
So for me, I love close-up magic. I don't really, strangely, I don't perform close-up magic very often anymore because I'm very much performing in the corporate world. Most of what I do is hosting and after dinner performances when I'm not doing theatre shows. So I very rarely get booked for close-up, but close-up magic is the magic that I love the most. But on top of that, the magic that I think is most powerful really is closer to the mentalism realm. I think if you can make someone pick up ideas or thoughts from people's minds that mean something to them for whatever reason, and you get that emotional hook with them so that they go away thinking that they had a really special experience which was completely unique to them. And in reality, most mentalism is completely unique every time you do it, depending on who it is that's thinking of something and how you divine what they've been thinking of. So my number one would be a wallet. It's a wallet that I use as my everyday wallet, and I've always got it on me, and I'm always ready to use it purely for the power that you can create from it. And that is Lewis Laval's Oracle wallet. It's a fantastic, I won't say what it does just in case non-magicians find this podcast, but I assume most people will know straight away what it does, or you can at least have a guess as to what it does. But the miracles you can perform with it are just endless. It's not a one trick kind of effect. You could literally do anything with it. Once you can work pieces of information out from people, the sky's the limit. So I hope that's a good first choice.
Yeah, it's a really, really good wallet. So it's another one that I have as well. I've got so many magic wallets. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. Right. We can open a shop, no doubt.
Literally good.
But for normal people, just for the wallets. Yeah. I use it. So I think my one is the smaller version. So it's too small to actually fit a card easily full. But I have a lot of routines where I end up with a folded card to wallet and bill to wallet. And I use the same wallet. And I think it's really nice because you open it up and it's got it's clear so that they can see it's in the wallet, tucked in the wallet, but they can see instantly that whatever it is that you've pinched from them is in there before you even pull it out. And I really like that. So it is quite universal.
Let's move on to number 2 then. What would you take in your second place?
Well, the second thing I would take because not only is it an amazing piece of magic, but also it's something that I still, even though I've owned it for probably what I would imagine is 5-6 years, I still haven't got around to actually learning. So I think I need some time on a desert island to sit down and really dedicate some time to getting it going. But a fantastic piece that lots of people use, no doubt, is the Stand Up Monty by, it's Garrett Thomas, isn't it? The Stand Up Monty. It's just so full of fantastic moments. And it's such a great, I assume it's probably a 5-minute piece, I would say. Is it of just constant wow moments? So I would take that mainly because I've actually got it on my desk behind me. It's and it's been there for a long time because it's on my list of things to learn because it looks really fun. But it's I haven't got around to doing it yet. Well, saying that, I've got magic all around me of things I would love to learn, but have still not got around to using. But is that something you've done before?
So it's one that I just haven't got around to learning, but I've got it and I really want to get to it. But I want to get to the stage where I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I want to be so quick and so slick with it. And I think that I've seen a couple of performers do it so well.
To every one person who performs it, there's probably 20 people who've got it on their desk, just like us, wanting to learn it. But even if they have learned it, they're just still not quite comfortable doing it under pressure, because there is quite a lot of thought that goes into it. You have to keep track of what you're doing for no doubt for it. But yeah, top trick and a great guy as well. I've not met him in person, but he's brought out some amazing stuff. And
it is one of those effects as well where you can play it sort of magic-y or sleight of handy or like a scam if you want to go down the con man route as well.
And that is such a good thing for a marketed trick. Especially if you're a gigging magician and you're doing weddings or corporate events, close-up magic, chances are most people, well, maybe not most people, but a lot of people that you meet are going to have come across a magician at some point in the not too distant past. And and if they see something like I one of my favorites, which isn't on my list, so don't count this, but one of the greatest tricks that's been brought out in a long time is double cross. And I still think it's great. And I still think if someone's not seen it before, it's just the most brilliant thing you could do for a stranger. But at the same time, I never perform it just because it's so specific in, and I know you can get different, it doesn't have to be a cross, you can do all sorts of different things, but just it just terrifies me at a gig because I assume that most people would have seen a magician at some point. And if they've seen a magician, they've probably seen that person do that trick.
Well, I think Stand Up Monty is a solid second choice. But that brings us on to number 3. What do you have in your third position?
So in third position, I mean, I love levitation effects. I think they're brilliant. In all honesty, I don't really do any levitation effects. I know Matthew Wright's got some great coins across and stuff which are levitating. I own lots of different types of thread and lots of different ways of doing amazing things. I've also not really performed them too much, but there is something very magical about Adam Wilber's Grandfather's Top. I'm sure it is called Grandfather's Top. It's like a little spinning top of a bottle cap, and I have worked on it, and I have put together a kind of my own little routine for it. I haven't gigged it yet, mainly because I feel like for me, it's more of a casual trick that I would do for friends at a casual kind of environment. I would feel a bit too under pressure doing it at a gig. But yeah, I think there's something very, very magical about it, and it's a nice thing is created in terms of it disappears and then you can reappear it where it started. And I love the kind of magic that starts and ends where you started, but people aren't expecting that to happen. I think that full circle in a surprise way is very powerful.
Do you know what's lovely about that as well, though? It's the item that you're using. Like when we think about magic, cards, pens, coins, there's something quite generic about magic in the props that we use. So when there's something really unique at a gig, imagine bringing that out of its little box and showing it. It's such an interesting thing in and of itself before you even introduce the story behind it and what it does.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. And the fact that if you bring it out in that little box that it comes with, I mean, you could have that box on the side and just wait for someone's one day to mention it. And then just the fact that you keep that in a box suggests that this has got quite a special meaning. You're not just pulling out of thin air. You keep it safe in this box for whatever reason, which adds a nice bit of mystery. And I totally agree with you. It's something very special and different. Well, I don't think I've ever seen a gigging magician at a gig doing anything levitation wise. I know there are magicians who do it, but I assume there's so much more hassle in close up magicians going around having to reset that kind of stuff that they probably don't do it. But there are some fantastic. In fact, there was a gentleman. It's gonna kill me because I can't remember his name, and that really bugs me because I'm gonna give him a shout out, but. He's no longer with us, but a fantastic magician who I met a couple of times. He was performed at Covent Garden, very well known. You'll probably know his name, and lots of people listening will know straight away. And please forgive me for not remembering his name. I do know it; it's just not on the top of my head. He used to perform with the mouse in Covent Garden. And he'd make this mouse appear and disappear, and it's just the most incredible magician. The stuff he did was stuff that I'm sure most of us are culprits. I'm sure most of us choose the easier option very often, especially when you go in tables to tables. You choose stuff that's just going to easy resets. You can get around as many people as you can. But it's something very special about someone like he always did, that would go the extra mile to make sure he might not make it around the whole room, but for the people who saw him, he would be doing stuff that they will never forget for the rest of their life. It was such unique stuff. And I remember he used to do a levitating cigarette, and it was, phenomenal.
So what I love about your list so far is it's very diverse. So far we've got like a utility item which is used for lots of different things. We've got a card trick that's sort of a card trick but not really, because it's like a like a game or a challenge. And then we've got a levitation effect. So far, very interesting, eclectic mix. So what would you have in your fourth position?
So I'm hoping I can have a 4A and a 4B because it's kind of a routine that works. So I'm a huge fan of Craig Petty's releases that he brings out. And I mean, one of the things that is just so inspiring about Craig Petty is just how constant and consistent, this is probably about how consistent he is with all of his YouTube stuff. And yeah, he's just always on fire doing what he loves to do, which is amazing to see. But one of his the ones that I think is really really magical is his Keymaster, and I'm sure it is called Keymaster, where you're pulling off holes of the keys and making them transfer to different keys. And I think that it's just such an unusual thing. I mean, in similar to what we said earlier, doing magic with keys feels very unique, and there's not many people out there, even if they've seen magicians. There's probably not many people who have seen a guy just pull out his keys and then do some magic with an item that you would genuinely just normally have in your pocket. I think there's something very magical about it. And with my 4B, the reason I said 4B is because I'm also a big fan of Wayne Dobson's key, where you have the ring and you can pull it through his routine, where you cover you place spectator's ring on the key, and there's lots of magical things that happen where it links onto the key and then comes off. And so I have an overall routine that I use where I use Keymaster and Wayne Dobson's key as well. And then it leads into other ring effects. So I kind of see it all as one effect. I feel like most of the routines with Keymaster are quite short, and I think it feels like you get people to such an excited moment that they want to see more. But you're kind of limited to then where you can go. Well, my mind was limited to where I could go, so then that's why I added in Wayne Dobson's key. Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Yep, I think you are on the money with both of them. I loved Keymaster when it first came out years ago. So Keymaster's been released twice, I think. So it came out many, many years ago now, I think. And then I think it was re-released a couple of years ago by Penguin. But both versions were just superb. And I think there's a thing about taking an everyday object that we see and we're familiar with, and then manipulating something on that object is sometimes more powerful than like doing something with a deck of cards, because you're altering something that we all know. The general public know there's a hole in a key at the top. So when you drag that down the stem, it's absolutely mind-blowing, because not only are you seeing a unique item, but you're also seeing something magical happen to that item as well.
Absolutely. So he's also brought out an add-on kind of to the Keymaster, which I can't think what it's called, but you can stretch the hole, and then I think the idea is you can then place a coin through the hole, which is a nice idea. And actually, I should probably look at adding that in to stretch out the routine a little bit.
Hey, stretch out the routine, I like what you did there.
Oh, there you go.
And that brings us, so we've gone past your halfway point now of your tricks. Again, really interesting mix so far. Really, really interesting. So let's find out what number 5 is.
So a fairly new effect, which is it's kind of more of a comedy, kind of fun effect, but leaves a really good giveaway, which I've done a few times, is Noel Quarter's Mini Book Pro. It's really fun. The audience is just, they seem to love it. It's great close-up magic, and it leaves people with a really funny gift that I think they would actually keep. Because you end up with a little laptop, and I always say that keep hold of this. You could do your emails on the train on your way home, and I like to think that they keep that, and it's a good giveaway. So, yeah, I think that's a great effect. Any effect where you can leave someone with a gift or an object that they want to keep without you having to say, "I'll keep this for good luck" or anything like that, I think is always a winner.
Mm-hmm. I think a good way when you're at a gig to gauge that as well is at the end of the gig, what's left on the tables. Like if you do fork bending and the fork's left on the table, is that necessarily a good thing or a bad thing? Is it better that they take it with them? Like, you're not always going to get everyone take things with them, but generally I think coin bends, most of the time signed cards, if we're all honest, most people have one. I don't know if you've seen this, people have them in their phone cases. The amount of people that take them and put them in the back of their phone.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right, 100%. Giveaways, a Minibit Pro is like, you just don't see the ending coming, even as a magician, and knowing versions of that. I mean, I think it was Lee Smith had a version years ago with an iPhone on a card, and you do this whole joke thing where you pull it up to your ear and the card comes through, but then you turn it over and it is the card.
Oh, that
And
sounds good.
so there's lots of versions that have come up over the years, but for some weird reason, the way that Minibook Pro was structured, you just don't see the ending coming. It's so
Mm.
mesmerizing that you get to that stage, to that point.
Yeah, yeah. He's a really great thinker, Noel Quarter. I don't think I've ever, I mean, I may have once or twice at conventions, but I've never really met him in real life. I would love to sit down and actually chat to him, because I also use his Bliss, which is the cash to a banknote to Sharpie, which I know lots of people own and don't use, because I feel like a lot of people feel like it's too clunky. But I think it's genius. The way it works is so well thought out, and part of the reason of me just linking that into Minibook Pro is because hoping that just won't count as one of my effects in this list. But I did want to give that one a little note, because I do think Bliss is very, very good.
Another cheeky honourable mention.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to let you know about all the exciting things happening here at Alakazam Magic. We have brand new releases every single month and live streams every Tuesday, so there's so much content to dive into. We ship every single day. If you're in the UK and your order goes to over £40, we ship it to you for free. If you're international and your order amounts to over £70, we ship it for free, fully tracked. And if you live in the United States, we get it sent from our California branch, which means you have cheaper shipping, faster shipping, and no import duties. Can't get any better than that. Honestly, there's so much to discover here at Alakazam, including the monthly newsletter with all orders. We have our own live academy where the world's biggest names in Magic teach the best tricks in the world. And it's live, so you can interact and ask any questions you like. We have so many exciting things happening here at Alakazam, so make sure you follow us on all social media, Facebook and Instagram, to find out the latest news. Cheers guys, and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So that brings us on to trick number 6. What have you gone for?
This is a really fun one, and it is Wayne Dobson's iPhone. I don't know if you've seen it. It's great fun. It's just like just what Wayne is world famous for. It's just got brilliant comedy in it, and a lot of it is kind of like dad jokey, but people love that. It's great fun, and it ends very clever, because you can end up pretty fairly, really, divining someone's thought of card. It's actually very, very clever, but full of great gags. And I use it. I always have it in my top pocket. I don't use it at every gig, but I always have it there. And occasionally, it just the right moment just presents itself. And I do think it's very good when you have a card stack as well ready. Because I do think it's very powerful if, instead of you telling someone what card they're thinking of, if you give them a pack of cards and give them a number that they can then deal down to, which the effect allows you to do. It's something very, very powerful about it, and it's just brilliant comedy. I think I've never done it at tables, actually, but I would imagine, as long as people on the table could all hear you and it wasn't too noisy in the room, I think it would be great for tables.
So do you use it for like parlor stage?
You know what I have used is there's an iPad version, which is basically all the same gags, but on it's a slightly bigger version, and you end up pulling the entire card out at the end. I've used that on stage. The iPhone I've just used close up, just in little mingling groups, small groups of. I think you probably need four people plus for it to get the right kind of banter between people. But the iPad version on stage is great. It's a little bit more knacky because you're under a little bit more pressure, because there's slightly more you have to do for the stage version. But it's a great opener. Whether you're using an iPhone or the iPad, I think it's a great way to open up people, whether that's a theatre or close up. It's a good way for people to realise that straight away off the bat, you're not going to take yourself too seriously. especially I've not done it on cruises, but if you're going to do a cruise show, it's a really good opener because lots of people will be coming to your show with different thoughts as to what a magician is, and they're not necessarily choosing to come and see you. You're just what's on that night. So sometimes all the time, you have to really win them over straight away. And for the people in the room who are worried that I don't know, maybe going to take yourself too seriously, all that kind of stuff, it's a great kind of opener to kind of break down that wall and get people laughing and interacting straight away. I think it's great for that.
And it's one of those routines where the jokes can be swapped about, taken in. Like you can put your own pieces in, take your own bits out, make it your own, which is really, really nice. There's no one I would rate higher in comedy and magic than Wayne Dobson. And you know what? I bought his. Annoyingly, I should have bought the trilogy, all 3 of the books. I bought one, and then realised I'm probably going to buy them all individually now. It cost me 5 times as much, but it's a great book. The books he's just bought out. Yeah, really good. So that brings us on to number 7. What's in your 7th position?
So number 7, we have. So it's something that I would imagine 95% of the magicians out there gigging, whether you perform it or not, you will have it, is Extreme Burn. It's just the most visual, awesome thing ever. And obviously I don't perform it very much, but I know it's very, very powerful, and I think it's very good. I only perform it in situations where I, for whatever reason, am going to give cash away, whether it's using it to buy something in a shop, or whether I'm gigging and I borrow a 20, make it disappear, and then I need to give it back. Because there's something, it's very magical, but there's also something very unmagical about making money appear, and it looks like you can just make money appear out of nowhere or from paper and then not give it out. It just feels a bit brutal in some of the ways I've seen people perform it. A bit barbaric that you're this brilliant guy who can do amazing things, but not going to help anyone with your superpowers. But it's a great effect, and I think it's one of those things that you will really make someone's day if you go into a shop. If you could pop into Greg's to buy a coffee, and you can see the person on the other side's having a difficult day, and you try and pay with a silly bit of money, and then turn them all into 20s. That will make that person's day. They'll be talking about it for the rest of the day, and probably the rest of the week and beyond.
Question for you: when you perform it, what do you change from?
So I have my own silly money, which is basically I used to have so Steve Rowe, brilliant guy that he is, designed some cash for me. I tell you what, it was an absolute nightmare trying to print fake cash. It's just, I mean, your printer, most printers, I thought it was a myth, but you can't, even though I made my own one, because it was laid out like I've got 50s and 20s, but it's got my face on it, but everything else was similar to a genuine banknote. Trying to print it on a normal printer, it rejects it. All printers have got some sort of recognition to know that you're trying to forge money. So I had to ask this guy. I was a bit worried about it, so I thought I don't want to have to ask him again. So I got literally in my cupboard, I've probably got about, I don't know, £100,000 worth of cash with my face on it, just because I didn't want to have to ask him to do them again. So I just got it in bulk. Nice. So I have silly money with my face on it. I have some jokes about. Have you seen the new 20s with the new king on it? And it's a silly picture of me with a crown on. So I do like a bill switch with those usually, and then I'll you turn those into real 20s. And that's what I do.
There are ways to use real money to do that same effect. I know Steve. Yeah, it was Steve. He used to be able to. He used to do one where his face was on a borrowed note, I think, but it was a real note. So it was a real English note. So there are ways to do it. I'm not sure whether he's managed to work out a way to do it with polymer paper though.
Right.
That's the only difference. This was before we had plastic money.
Yeah, it's interesting this plastic money. I still use the new plastic money for bill switches, but I know a lot of people don't anymore because but I have it built into my routine where I have a gag anyway, so where it allows me to basically fold it in front of people and then open it up again so that when I use it to actually switch, it's already got slightly folded creases in it, which makes it slightly easier. But yeah, I'm sure the Bank of England did that just to annoy us all.
I reckon so. Just
Yeah,
for magicians. So that brings us to your final trick. What would
I've
you
only
have
got
in
one
your
more.
what would be
Okay.
in your last position?
So something I do use quite a lot, and I do think is very, very cool because it uses other people's objects, is R digit. And I'm not sure who created it. I should have checked that out, but it's obviously a phone calculator trick, which I'm usually not fans of calculator stuff because it's very much overdone nowadays. But it's very different because you're taking numbers from other people's phones and transferring them across. And if you get creative, you can do it with other people's phones without your own. So you can there's like a final piece you could do, which I'm not sure if they teach on it or not, but you can take numbers from someone's phone and put it on someone else's phone. Which is very cool. And I also like the linking in stuff. Like if you're going to pull out a calculator and do stuff like this, it's worth having subtly within it ways of picking up people's pin numbers and stuff. There's a great thing in Michael Murray's book, "Peace of My Mind" is the name of the book, where in it he does a toxic revelation, but he also, while he's doing the toxic, he'll be able to work out people's pin numbers for their phone. It's just like an extra bonus. And there's something I do when I do R digit, which is similar to that. I'll pick up their pin number. So once I finish R digit, great finish. People always love it, and then I can get into their phone with their pin number as well. It's a nice kind of finish to it. Because if you're going to use anyone's phone for anything, the one thing that they always think of straight away is, "Oh, is he going to be able to get into my phone?" So it's kind of a nice way to finish that routine by then doing that. And funny story, I once did a very awkward gig it was in a country manor for a bunch of Americans who I was told owned or were huge owners of casinos and big stuff in Vegas. No idea who they were. They're a really strange bunch. And it was in a country manor in the middle of nowhere. And I was told that there was 50 people going to be there. So I had all these plans for using an amaze box and all sorts of different stuff to get forts and stuff. Anyway, I turned up and it was four blokes, these just four American blokes from America on this hunting trip in the English countryside. So all my plans went out the window because I couldn't do what the show I planned. Anyway, they were the hardest crowd I've ever done, and I had to spend probably an hour and a half with them basically doing close-up magic, and it was awkward, and they were really tough because obviously they'd seen a lot of magicians. But the one thing that amazed him the most was when I asked one of the guys, "Can I borrow your phone?" So I got his phone, and I was just going to get his calculator up. And what he didn't realize is, as I picked up his phone, he'd either looked at it and it had just recognized his eyes or whatever and opened, or maybe he didn't even have a passcode. But the one thing that amazed those four blokes more than any other trick I did all night was when I picked up his phone and it was already unlocked and they thought I'd unlocked it. That was the only thing that saved that gig, saved me from asking for a refund. Because they were a tough crowd, but they were very impressed that I got into this guy's phone. I'm sure later on that night they realised that he didn't even have a password or whatever. But I'll never forget the power of being able to unlock strangers' phones.
So yeah, great choice. R digit is excellent. So I've just looked it up. I think it's by Chris Torrente or Torrente.
The rings a bell. Yeah.
So I think it's great as well. Really, really good choice. And you're right. It doesn't feel like there's technology involved, even though there's technology involved, because it's quite organic with what you're getting and how it's working.
Yeah, and because your phone is in their hand as well, and you're not in fact holding any. Well, it depends how you do it, but if you're using an extra little thing that you can get very cheap, you don't have to have your hands on any phones, which is very cool. Yeah, there you go. And interestingly as well is people forget that it's your phone, and as long as you structure it in the right way, I ask, so when if there's a group of say 5 or 6, I ask everyone to just grab out their phones, and I'll grab a couple of their phones and then hand them back in a bit of a sneaky way. So that although it's my phone and one of their phones, in their minds, it's two of their phones. And then when I finish, I do a joke where I give the guy, whoever his actual phone back, and I say, hey, this is a gift for you to keep. And under that kind of crappy gag that they laugh at, I'll just ditch my phone, and people will forget that it was ever your phone there. It's if they can remember it being just their phones, it's very powerful.
Great choices. I like that they're all so different. You've got a key trick, you've got money tricks, you've got phone tricks, you've got wallet. Yeah, it's great. But we're going to get on to the 2 hardest choices because you only have one of each.
Right.
So what did you go for your book?
So for the book, is there, when you say one, do you mean A and B or just one?
We're back to this A and B stuff. Great.
No,
I'll tell you what, you can have an honourable mention again. How about
okay,
that?
we'll do an honourable mention. By the way, don't let any other person that you interview have honourable mentions, all right? I want to be the only
It's
person
too late. It's happened all the way through.
Oh, is it really? So probably the most useful book known to Magic Entertainment, has no tricks in it, but it is the best book that every magician should read, is Maximum Entertainment by Ken Weber. I'm sure there's probably another person who, if they haven't already mentioned it on this podcast, someone will bring it up again, because like I said, there's no tricks in it or anything like that. It is purely great knowledge and just gold dust of how you should be performing, what you should be wearing, how you should be coming across, and it is just full of absolute gold that you can't seem to find anywhere else. There's kind of stuff it talks about in it about performance I've not come across even the same kind of genre of advice in any other book.
Mm-hmm. I think it's nice to have. There's so many magic books that are magic like tricks, but performance theory, there's not many magic books on the market that are specifically performance theory, and you're right, it's just full of little nuggets of amazing knowledge.
I reread it every couple of years. I've probably read it back to back probably 3 times, and I've delved into it, and whenever I get any book, I always read it with a highlighter, so I'm always highlighting stuff in every book so that if I ever flick back the things that struck the most when I read it the previous time, I'll be able to jump to nice and easily, nice and quickly. It's great advice.
Have you annotated yours with things that you've learned? Because it's fair to say you've done a truckload of performances in different theatres, in different venues. So it would be so interesting if you were to rewrite sections of Maximum Entertainment from your experience and your viewpoint. I wonder how your book would be annotated if we were to look at it. I wonder how different
That's
it would be.
That's a really good question. Yeah. You know what? I do have long-term plans at some point to maybe just jot down, or whether it's whether I just do a podcast or some YouTube videos or a book or about some of the advice that I've learned over the years the hard way. Because I mean, the best way to grow and to learn how to be good is to be terrible and have lots of problems and lots of terrible experiences and going through. I mean, there's so many situations I found myself in where it's just unlike anything else. There's for example, certain corporate environments where life is just a lot tougher for someone on stage than other gigs. And interesting things I've picked up. I would love to at some point put some advice down, where it would be useful to anyone or just useful for me to write it down and then remind myself of the important things that I've learned. It's interesting. And in fact, that's going to lead me nicely into the honourable mention, is Darren's latest book for magicians, which I have here, Notes from a Fellow Traveller, which is probably the only book I've read all the way through in the space of 2 days. I went to a wedding in Spain, and I had 2 days before the wedding, just sat in the sun, and I read it back to back all the way through. But the reason it is I feel like that leads on nicely to that book is because there's something really special about how honest he is in it. He's written it over the course of however many months of his tour. And it's really eye-opening to see that he has the same problems that everyone else has. It really, because I've always found that it's sometimes difficult because you might have a solid act or a solid show that you take to a theatre one night and it absolutely kills. Everyone loves it. It's just the most electric crowd ever. And then you might the next day go to another venue and you do the same show, and for whatever reason you just get the complete opposite reaction. It's sometimes so tough to figure out what it is. And something that's really amazing in Darren's book is he highlights that some nights he has great nights and other nights he has not so great nights, and there's so much to it. It might be the acoustics of the room. You might not be able to hear the audience necessarily from the stage in the same way, and it kind of affects how you're performing, and then the little boundaries build up throughout the show, and kind of how crucial it is to choose the right volunteers, the right spectators, because if you get the right person there having a good time, everyone has a good time. You choose the wrong person, they get on stage and they're miserable as hell. Everyone else is affected by that, and it also affects your next 5 or 6 volunteers later on the show. They're going to be a bit more on edge. And yeah, there's something really nice about how honest he was, and he's obviously the top go-to entertainer in our realm, and for him to be so honest and show us that he has tough nights as well was really cool.
So that brings us on to your final item, and this is your non-magic item that you couldn't live without.
So I would take with me a grand piano, and the reason for that is because for many reasons, music helps me for lots of different reasons. If I'm ever stressed, if I sit down at the piano and just play, it's a great way to de-stress. It's also a great way to think. If I need to come up with new ideas or I need to make plans and I can't figure out how things are gonna pan out, if I sit down and play at the piano for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but it helps me think more logically and think more clearly for sure. And I could sit down like today. I've literally spent about 3 hours today, not all at the same time, but dabbling throughout the day, learning some new pieces, which are actually going to be used in my next tour show, which I'm very excited about. But the thing I love about being a musician is, as well as a magician, is the music element reminds me how easy it is as a magician to be lazy. And I don't mean this in any offensive way. I'm talking about myself more than anything. Is when you compare a musician to a magician, I find it very interesting because as a magician, you could be learning for 2 days. You can buy a trick straight out the box that just works and instantly is able to convince someone that you've been a master of magic for years, and you've spent years developing this skill to be able to do that thing that you just did. It's very easy to fast track and then get convinced in your own self that you're more advanced than you are. And I was a culprit of that. Learning tricks when I first started magic and seeing how amazing the reactions you could get with something that you only spent 10 minutes learning is amazing, really. But you can't, what I find fascinating is you can't fake that with music. No one can sit down at the piano and convince people that they've spent the last 10 years mastering that instrument. And it's interesting that even though I've been playing the piano for 20 years, if I want to learn a new piece of music, it still takes me a long, long time to be able to master that piece of music. And it's a real reminder that the dedication that you need to be a musician, it's a good way of reminding myself that to be at the top in magic, you need to be dedicating time. It's easy to walk on stage under rehearsed and pull a show out the bag and it'd be fine. But it's really, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be putting in the hours to make sure that show is the best that it can be, because we've worked as hard as we can. And in a sense, it's harder for magicians to be a really high standard because really we need an audience to feel like what we're doing is good. But even if you just went out on the street, if you're a new magician, if you went out in the streets and you performed for 3 hours every day, trying out new material, just like you might be sat on a piano for 3 hours every day, you will fast track and you would eventually become amazing, like a prodigy of magic. But I don't think any of us put as much time as we should into planning stuff, especially me. I need to work harder on that. Does that make sense?
I think it's amazing, but I mean, you've nearly answered my next question, but this is the first thing that came to my head was, have you not thought about working that into a show? But it sounds like you are at the moment.
Yeah. So I won't tell you what it is, but I've spent many, many years trying to figure out how I can involve music into my shows. And I have in the past done certain things which never really felt powerful enough to justify traveling around with a piano and doing it. It always felt a bit hashed in, but I now have a great idea, which I've been working on for quite a few months, which I think will be brilliant. So I'm looking forward to that. And when so the thing I would compare, so a say for example a pianist at the top of their game, how you would compare that to the magic world is you'd see the great FISM winners who you just know have spent so much time in a room on their own working on things that is hard to keep yourself motivated to keep rehearsing. But yeah, so I think we should all remind ourselves every now and again that we all need to constantly be improving. And when I say that, I really mean me. But if anyone else takes anything from that as well, that's good.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that's absolutely true. I think that's massively true. And that's funny. We've mentioned him a couple of times, but I've got a friend called Dean Levy. And the amount of effort and prep he puts into his close-up gigs is just mind-bending. He spends so many hours.
I've not seen him perform close up, but I assume he gets that from his stage act. He has like a really classic stage act that no doubt takes hours and hours of prep. I've seen him perform on stage, and it reminds me, looking back at when I first started doing paid gigs, I used to travel around with like 3 or 4 flasks with giant ice cubes in them and like 5 or 6 bags of different stuff that I could, which in hindsight is silly to a certain extent because you can't turn up at every gig with that. It's not practical. But at the same time, it's easy to remember that in this day and age, we praise ourselves for playing big despite packing small, but it's actually something I saw Henry White did a post years ago, and I've never forgotten it, that we should never be proud to pack small, play big just for the sake of it, just for the sake making it easy. We should really be packing in a way that allows us to do the best show that we can do for the people who are coming to see us. And yeah, we shouldn't be cutting corners to make it easier for ourselves. We should be putting as much hard work into it that they deserve for coming and paying to see us.
Well, I've loved your list. I think it's been a really interesting mix, and it'll be interesting to see how many people come up with the ones that are on your list going forward. I wonder if anyone else has said piano.
Oh yeah, that'll be interesting.
We've had, did someone say Dex? Maybe someone said DJ Dex. I can't remember.
Oh, okay.
But that,
they're going to a party island. I'm more of a Bahamas in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
No, that's great. So if anyone wants to find out more about you, and in particular about your new tour, which I will definitely be at one of them, where can they go and find out more about you?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so my website is richardjonesmagic.co.uk. Almost all of the dates are on there now. There's 2 more to come, but they will be up on the next few days. So probably by the time people are hearing this, they'll all be up. It's called Soldier of Illusion, and it's a new show. Very excited about it. And anyone who's listening to this, if you are a magician, then, which I assume you should be, if not, you shouldn't have been listening. I always go to the foyer after the show, so do come and say hi, and it'll be nice to meet you.
Yep, and it's really nice, actually, when we came to your show. that meet and greet aspect at the end really means a lot to some of those people. It was so nice to see you out there doing that and seeing how people reacted to being able to meet you at the end. I think it's a really nice touch that more people should be taking
Well, if
note
anything,
of.
it probably means more to me than it does to them. It's so nice to go out into the foyer and see that people are pleased with what I've done. I did a show many years ago and with lots of people in it, and we used to have to. I went every night for. I think we did it. It was 3 months run. Every night I would go to the exit to be there saying bye to people as they left. And it always blew my mind that the other performers used to do Ching Chang Walla because they only needed to be one other person. They used to Ching Chang Walla it to see who would go out the front to do that. And I felt like, God, everyone should be out there to sign. If you're going to do a show, obviously, if you get to the point like Darren where you're doing hundreds of shows all the time, I can understand that you don't have time for it. But for everyone else out there, we should be saying bye to people as they leave, I think.
I agree. Well, thank you so much, Richard. It's been so interesting to find out your tricks, and we may get you back in the future because there are ideas beyond this. So we may see if your list changes in about a year's time or 2 years' time.
That would be interesting, yeah.
Just to see if anything changes or alters, or something new might come out, something might get knocked off your list, even though you've snuck in a couple of A's, B's and honourable mentions into the list as well. But yeah, It's been great. Thank you so much. So like Richard said, make sure that you find him on social media. Make sure you book tickets to go and see the show. We should all be supporting each other. And look out for his book, which he just promised that he's going to write for us all to read in the future. But with that, we will say goodbye and we'll see you on another episode of Desert Island Tricks.
Hi, Peter Nardi here, and I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I just wanted to let you know that Alakazam have their own app. You can download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. By downloading the app, it will make your shopping experience even slicker at Alakazam. You'll also get exclusive in-app offers and in-app live streams. So go download it now, and we'll see you on the next podcast.